Hey everyone, this is our first podcast. ಇವತ್ತು ನಮ್ಮ ಜೊತೆ ರಮೇಶ್ ಕುಮಾರ್ ಅವ್ರು ಮಾತಾಡ್ಯಾರ. ಹಿ ಈಸ್ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಫಿಸಿಕ್ಸ್ ಫ್ಯಾಕಲ್ಟಿ ಐ ಐ ಟಿ ಅನ್ನೋರು. ಲಾಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ಡ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಯಾಕೆ ನಮಗೆ ಸೈಂಟಿಫಿಕ್ ಟೆಂಪರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇರಬೇಕು. ಈಗಿನ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಸೈನ್ಸ್ ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ ಅಥವಾ ಪಿ ಯು ಸಿ ಒಳಗೆ ಸೈನ್ಸ್ ತೊಗೊಂಡವ್ರಿಗೆ ಆ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಮ್ ಯಾಕೆ ಡಿಫಿಕಲ್ಟ್ ಆಗ್ತೈತಿ. ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ಲಾಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಪೀಪಲ್ ಸೇ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಸೈನ್ಸ್ ಭಾಳ ಡಿಫಿಕಲ್ಟ್, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾ ಕಾಮರ್ಸ್ ತೊಗೊಂಡೆ, ಸೈನ್ಸ್ ಭಾಳ ಡಿಫಿಕಲ್ಟ್, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾ ಬಿ ಎ ತೊಗೊಂಡೆ ಅಂತಂತಾರೆ. ಯಾಕೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಸೈನ್ಸ್ ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ ಅಥವಾ ಸೈನ್ಸ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಮ್ ಡಿಫಿಕಲ್ಟ್ ಆಕೈತಿ ಅನ್ನೋದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಭಾಳ ಚಲೋ ಕನ್ವರ್ಷನ್ ಆಗೈತಿ. ಐ ಹೋಪ್ ಯು ಲೈಕ್ ಇಟ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಪಾಡ್ಕಾಸ್ಟ್. Please do watch till the end and let's start it. The first thing is, how do we develop scientific temperament in today's kids? Because recently I just come across the news where Karnataka government is trying to popularize science amongst students. I think I just 19 centers they're trying to open in Karnataka, throughout Karnataka. So how do you feel about that? Why? How do we develop a scientific temperament in today's kids?
That's a good question that you asked first, that how do we develop the scientific temperament among kids? Right?
Exactly.
Okay, so if you look at the scientific temperament, it is the spirit of questioning, inquiring, right? So if you have the right scientific temperament, right? So there are many things which can be achieved as a society. So how should we develop it, right? So if you want to develop the scientific temperament, there are few questions you need to ask when you experience any event in the nature or personally. So there are two questions you need to ask yourself whenever you experience it.
That's
How-
very true. That's very true.
And why?
Correct.
Right? If you look at a child, now they're always curious to ask how this is happening, why this is happening, right?
True.
So the child with a very less knowledge naturally is having scientific temperament.
Correct.
The scientific temperament is, yes, you have to ask why and how. That's what the child is asking. But unfortunately, most of the kids, when they start growing, we have seen that decline in that temperament.
That's very true.
Right? In most of the countries who have not developed it, even in the developed countries, as the child grows, most of them are losing the scientific temperament. Now the question is, how can we make this temperament alive? How can we keep it alive? Right? So to keep it alive, what you have to do, what I think is that whenever you experience anything, you have to ask the question. I'll give you some set of the examples.
Yeah, please.
Which will give you the idea that, how should we be having this scientific temperament.
Please.
So, anytime anyone visits the mountain, that we only know that the mountain tops are cold and the base are hot.
Yeah.
Right? Rarely someone asks the question why the tops are, cold and why the bottoms are hot. Relatively, right? Because, that's hot and cold is a relative term, right? Ice, that generally we have the notion that it is cold, can be made to feel hot.
Yeah.
When you touch ice and you can feel it to be hot also, there are ways to make you feel this ice hot.
Correct.
You just have to keep your palm on some object which is relatively
Colder.
having less temperature than that ice. You touch it and then touch that ice. That will feel to be hot.
That's very
right.
true. Yeah.
So the question is, why the tops are relatively cold? In spite they are close to the sun, to the base.
Correct.
Right? If that's the question you ask yourself, you are going to, have a lot of knowledge from the science. If you inquire and try to satisfy your, quest.
Correct.
And again, look at another example. When you are watching your favorite show, movie, or any sports.
Correct.
So you can have various options. You can watch it by standing. You can watch it by sitting on the wooden chair. You can watch it by sitting on the sofas, or you can watch it by resting on the recliner. Right? Out of all, the level of the comforts that you are going to experience will be different.
Of course, yes. Yeah.
So we know that we'll be more comfortable here, but do you ever ask why? That question needs to be asked. Right? Now look at another example. Have you seen that, when you want to buy the dosa, look at the tawa of the dosa. It is relatively thick.
Yeah. Correct.
But go to visit any Chinese shop where they are making these noodles, Chinese noodles. Look at their tawa in which they make that rounded tawa. It is relatively very thin. right? So for the cooking stuffs, you have different kind of utensils in your kitchen.
Correct.
Their design, the materials used, their thickness, all are different. Don't you think there is some scientific reason behind it? There is. You just need to explore it, right? You go to the petrol pump, there are two different, air filling machines. One says normal air, another says nitrogen air, right? So there must be some reason why they are keeping it separate, right? So you can get it, you know that nitrogen is better for this tire. Do you ask the question why? Right? So these are the set of the questions you need to keep on asking whenever you experience something in the nature.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you ask these questions, you will be developing this scientific temperament. Even if you don't know the science, and if you ask this question, right, it means you have the scientific temperament. And if you know a little bit of science with a little bit of research, you can quest your thirst of knowing the reason behind it.
Yeah,
Right?
that's
Yes.
I think as you rightly said, uh, when we start growing, we start losing the temperament of asking questions. We always have that. We always had, in fact, like
Yes.
kind of our teacher used to tell always, whenever you try to read or whenever you try to understand any concepts, they always used to say us like you should always ask these three questions: why, what, and how.
Yeah.
I think that's rightly said, in fact.
Yeah, adding to this, if you ever visit these malls, you can see that they have a lot of water bottles. And if different sections will have different design of the water bottles.
Yeah, correct.
Right? But if you go to buy the gas cylinder, how many designs do you see?
One single
Right?
design.
So there must be some reason, right, why they are not manufacturing that gas cylinder in different shapes, while there is no restriction on making the water bottle. Right? So whenever you look at the design, it serves two purposes. One, look, another, safety.
Yeah.
Right? So sometimes safety becomes very important.
Very important, yeah.
Sometimes design becomes important, because if the water bottle leaks, it is not going to take your life.
Exactly.
But if the gas cylinder leaks, it can take your life. So that's where safety is more important. So whatever design, shape serves for this safety will be, given the priority. For the water bottles, safety is not that important. Look is more important. You carry it all the time.
Correct.
गैस सिलेंडर किसी कोने में डाल के रख दिया है. No one is going to say ऐसा क्यों खरीदा, वो ऐसा क्यों खरीदा, right? So sometimes from the design perspective, sometimes look is important, sometimes safety is important.
True,
right?
true.
Reasons that why should you have the scientific temperament, and I will give these reasons keeping in mind the common man. Of course, those who are educated, those are scientists, we don't have to talk about why they should have that. They already have this scientific temperament.
Exactly. That is why I asked this question, because it is very important.
If you have the scientific temperament, it helps you make better and informed decision. You don't change the chutney of the samosa from the red to green so that you can have a baby or you can get your job done because some Baba told you. A lot of the common men do that.
Yeah.
There is a crowd in the darbar of the Baba listening to this.
Yeah.
Which chutney you are using, which fruit you are preferring, and you change it, and the job will be get done. Right? That is very stupid, right?
Correct.
So you have to ask that Baba question: how does it solve the purpose? No one asks it. They simply take it as a blessing, whatever he said. The second is that it helps you build the progressive society free from the superstitions and irrational practices. So look at some of the superstitions more prevalent in our society. Some of the superstitions, of course, are based on the scientific explanation, but many are, they don't have any scientific explanation to it. For example, you are walking on a road suddenly, or you are traveling on a road, a black cat crosses your path. Now you have to stop, take a back turn, let someone else cross first, and then you have to start your journey.
Yeah.
Personally, I have not found any, scientific explanation to it. Or you cannot cut your nail after the sunset, right? I don't find any scientific temperament. You should not sit on a journey on a particular day. These are the superstitions you will get rid of once you have the temperament of the science. You question it, why? Right? So these are the two. Third, it helps you build the harmony among the people of different thoughts and ideas. I'll give you the example from very past, right?
Please.
So in 2nd century, there was a scientist known as Ptolemy. And before that, before Christ, there was a scientist called Aristotle. So they gave the theory that the earth is the center of our system. The other planets and the sun revolve around it.
Yeah, correct.
So this belief was accepted by the society till 16th century. With the invent of this telescope and with the observation of this universe. So there is another scientist known as Copernicus. Right? So he said that it's not the earth which is at the center, it's the sun, and the others are revolving around it. But at that time, the church was very powerful, the Roman Catholic Church. So, and they believed in the idea that the earth is at the center. So, out of fear, the Copernicus did not publish it publicly. Or, no, he did publish publicly, but not openly. It was anonymous. He did not put his name, but he floated the idea.
Correct.
Sorry. Yeah, he published anonymously the idea that sun is the center, not the earth.
Correct.
So that idea at least got floated among the public. But no one publicly claimed that this is my idea. But later, 100 years later, in the 17th century, there were two more popular scientists. One was Kepler, he was from the German, and another was Galileo, he was from the Italy. Both publicly supported the idea of the Copernicus, and they also published about this. And did you know what happened to them? Not them, what happened to Galileo, because he was from the Italy, and this Roman Catholic Church, that's where they are established. So he was put under house arrest for the rest of his life because he went against the belief of the church. So this is where you see the conflict between the religion and science. You see that? So this conflict between religion and science has been happening from the past on.
Very,
right? So he was put under the arrest, right? But later on, what do we know? Today, what do we know? We do know that the earth is not at the center. In the solar system, the sun is at the center. Others are revolving around it. Right? So you can see that if you want to develop the harmony between the science and religion, both the people should have the scientific temperament. Of course, scientists are having this temperament. We expect the religious people also to accept the scientific temperament, appreciate and promote the scientific temperament.
True.
Something which goes against your religion, can't be punished.
Yeah.
Just because you believed it. Because science inquires. It does not believe without questioning it. But in the religion, it's just opposite. You don't question. You just have the faith, right? So that's the one area where the things can be made more harmonious, right? People can live with harmony if all of them have the scientific temperament.
This is very great information, because they have to understand the scientific temperament. Like when we talk about why we need to have the scientific temperament, some says that, as you took the example of, some says that ye nahi karna hai. I mean, like, let's say for example, you should not cut your nails after sunset.
Yes.
थोड़ा कुछ practices है, like it's been very long that we have been following. We don't know exactly. We never asked our parents, or we never asked anybody that what is the exact reason behind that. Some practices we just believe blindly. We believe blindly. But when we start asking questions, and these all things will be resolved, I guess.
So if you look at this miracle happening in the society, according to science, there is no such thing called miracle, right? But as a common man, when you see something which you can't explain, which is against your intuition, then you take it as a miracle.
Miracle, yeah.
Right? Because I come, if I meet you first time, and if I tell your name, your father's name, your relative's name, wouldn't you think that this is a kind of miracle?
Yeah, it will be surprising.
And there is someone doing currently also the same stuff.
Yeah, I have come
Right?
across
And there is a
like
crowd at the darbar. But there is a process in which you go and meet that Baba, and then he tells his your name or your relative's name.
Yeah.
If you have the scientific brain, you don't have to accept it, you have to question. Just before that Baba, you write a letter somewhere so that no one can see. Put it in an envelope and ask the Baba to read that letter. If you really want to satisfy yourself that does the Baba know the names or everything else or not, write and put it in the envelope, seal it, and ask Baba to read it. And if the Baba can read it, all the lines, you can start believing. I will also start believing in the miracle along with you. So far, I have not seen any miracle.
That's very
right?
true. Like,
because miracle, it becomes miracle if there is no scientific explanation to it. What is a miracle for today, cannot be miracle in the future. In the past, when it used to thunder, when it used to lightning, people attributed it as a act of the god, because they did not have any scientific explanation that why there is electricity in the air, right? Why there is a thunder. Then there are the concept of the god of the thunder, god of the rain, god of the fire, when the forest used to catch the fire. Over the time, as the science evolved, and we got the explanation, now we can predict with greater accuracy that when it is going to rain in Hubli, which cyclone is going to hit west coast or east coast, right? We know that when it is going to thunder at what places in India, not only in India, over the globe.
True.
With great accuracy. So with this development of the science, the charm of these gods has got faded. Yes or no?
Yeah, I mean, like certain level of worships were completely blind belief.
Yes.
Like without any, what I say, without any evidences, there were some rituals that we used to follow it. I think definitely, even I agree with respect to that particular point. Out of this discussion, I would just like to mention one point. Yeah, even I have this temperament and everything's all fine. But what I feel in certain religions, they have the practices and from which they are getting some energies, and which is scientifically, like they're correct. But we just don't know what is science behind that. We are just believing that. Abhi, like some people say when we do homa, right, at home, and we put all that ingredients and everything, we just do homa, it's all fine. But yeah, it is a rituals that we've been following it. But out of which there is also science where we do that process, there is a energy will be producing from that particular process.
I would completely agree with you. Many religious practices are based on the scientific evidence.
Correct.
They have the scientific explanation to it, that how does it benefit you.
Correct.
Over that time, the way the religion has been distorted, that's where the problem lies. This religion in its pure form, it's science only.
Correct.
But it has to be in its pure form.
Correct.
You don't see the religion in its pure form now.
Yes.
It has been distorted so many times by so many people.
Correct.
So it is no longer in its pure form. It has lot of impurities, right? And that's the problem.
In science, I think I have this I have got this kind of a feedback from a lot of students. But let me ask you this question: like, in science, which branch poses more challenges to the students in today's PU1, PU2 students, and why?
So you asked something which is very obvious to many kids, right? So I teach physics. Mainly
correct.
With the students, we are interacting about this physics content. And from my experience, I have found that most of the kids found more difficulty in physics than other subjects. We're not trying to undermine here any subject.
Yeah.
But this is just the feeling that we have got
I
from
understand it. I understand.
from the students, right? There are some reasons, I think, because if you want to learn physics, it demands a little bit different approach than learning mathematics or than learning, this biology.
True.
Right. So this physics is something, which requires, there are two tools you should have if you want to learn the physics in a better way. So you should have a good thinking, critical thinking, and second, you should have a good imagination. Right. If these two things you possess with an average or greater than average aptitude, you can enjoy, this learning of the physics. You can find pleasure in the study of the physics, right? So this thinking and this imagination, most of the kids are lacking nowadays, because if you don't have the time to give thoughts to certain situations, if you don't have, or if you are not giving the alone time to yourself and then thinking, right, you are not going to have the good imaginations, right? Because the thinking requires some alone time, right?
True.
It's a kind of meditation that you have to do, right? At the same time, the attention span of most of the kids has gone down nowadays. That's what we feel.
Yeah.
In the last 2-3 years, right, we have seen that the kids do not have that kind of attention span. Listening to 1 hour lecture, they will get bored, right? Comparative, before that, we had found on average the students had more attention span. So one of the reason I find that because they are more into this social media, it has gone more. The digital contents are more. You are watching reels, right? You are in the habit of looking at something which is for 30 seconds, switching. That's how you are training your brain.
Yeah.
Your brain wants that kind of a stuff only, and you can't learn physics with 30 seconds of the light. This attention span, right? You need to have the focused mind. If you don't have that, you can't learn this easily, right? Second can be, how the physics is being served to them, because most of the kids who wants to do medical or engineering, they join the coaching institutes, right?
Yeah.
They are trained there. They are given some books, booklets, modules,
Yeah.
right? They are also having reference books. They also have the role in, whether you are going to develop the interest in the particular subject or not.
Every material.
Yeah, materials plus your, teacher who is teaching it.
Everything matters.
Right, it matters in instilling the, the right curiosity, the motivation, the everything that you need to develop the interest, right? So if you are not being served the physics the way it should be served, that's where you start losing the, interest.
Yeah.
Second, even if you are curious to learn, then if you switch to the books, and if you are not having the right kind of books, then again you are going to lose the interest.
I think this is also very, very important.
Yeah. So most of the physics books are written mainly for the engineering and medical students. They are written by keeping in mind that the student somewhere is going into the coaching. That's why they are very concise, right? 3-4 lines, statements, and then a lot of problems, right? That is not going to develop scientific temperament in you, because the way physics should be written, it should arouse some curiosity in the students, right? From my personal experience, I have seen one book.
Yeah, please tell that.
Right, when I was preparing for this, so I had many reference books, not because I wanted to read them, just because something I'm not able to read, understand from some, resource, then I will switch to the another resource.
I was about to ask you this question. You just suggest some at least 1 or 2 books where they can just can have this.
For developing interest, I'll give you the examples. One book name, right?
Yeah, please.
So when I used to read that book at our time, I am reading one chapter and my mind is like, I'll read the next chapter also in a flow. And that kind of, encouragement, or you can say the curiosity I used to get by reading this book. right? This the book name is University Physics.
University Physics.
Yeah, this has not been written from the JE or the NEET point of view, but it serves the purpose also to an extent. Mainly, if you want to have the pleasure in the study of the physics, you must read this book. Very beautiful, written book. Now, if you after reading this book, if you switch to any other book, you will not find that kind of interest.
Wow.
Right? That I am saying from the personal experience, right? Because they start the chapter with a question that will be like, I'll read the chapter now and I'll answer this question. That's how they have started this chapter.
Correct.
Right? That's why the right kind of books also have the role, so that the students find it, interesting to study. Right?
When you talk about the PU1, PU2,
Yeah.
what purpose does these two, like PU1 physics and the PU2 physics serve?
So, right. First, I had I have a very great respect to those who have created the curriculum of this 11th and 12th class science and maths also.
Yeah.
Very great respect, because I have seen the content of this 11th and 12th class physics, let's say CBSE only. And whatever examples I gave in the beginning to you, that how can we develop the scientific temperament, like the examples of the mountain and the ice, everything. All these answers are there in the 11th and 12th class physics.
That's the beauty.
Everything that you experience in the nature or in your personal life, less or more, this 11th and 12th class physics have some level of the explanation to it. Right? If you are driving the vehicle very fast, suddenly a turn comes, sharp turn comes, you have to slow down the vehicle.
Yeah.
You can ask yourself a question, why it needs to be slowed down. Of course, you know that if you don't slow it down, there can be accident. The reason is why you can't do that. There is an explanation to it.
Yeah.
If you look at the tall buildings like Burj Khalifa, as it rises, the shape becomes narrower and narrower.
Yeah.
There is an explanation to it. I gave you the tawa example. Why it should be thick for the dosa and thin for the Chinese noodles. Yeah. There is an explanation to it.
Can we have one example and a quick explanation with respect to any of these?
Yes. So let me give you the example of this tawa, right? So this thick tawa, when you make it thicker and when you heat it, so when you make it thick, its mass increases, its heat capacity increases. So it gets heated slower. Some of the foods cooked at the slow rate of heat flow taste good.
Yeah.
They need to be cooked slowly. Some of the foods, when cooked at a very high temperature, they taste good.
Yeah.
Chinese foods.
Yeah.
So when you remove that layer of this mass, the heat capacity becomes less. Supply the same amount of the gas flame, it gets hotter faster. Temperature rises suddenly, and now we are cooking at a high temperature. You see that?
Yeah.
So that's the reason behind it. Right? If you use the different instruments to produce music, harmonium, flute, the quality of the sound is different. So there is an explanation why the quality of the sound is different. You increase the length of the same organ pipe, the quality of the sound changes. Flute, take a small height, bigger height, quality of the sound will keep on changing. There is an explanation to the physics in the 11th and 12th class. I'm telling you, you see anything, there is an explanation to it. That's why I like it the most. Right?
That's very
because it has, whenever you become curious and if you want to know, have the scientific explanation, there is something there.
And you start loving physics.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So with respect to this, the continuation, most of the students feel numericals difficult. With respect to the physics, especially they say physics difficult because most of the students, like they're very much kind of afraid or whatever.
Yeah, you can say afraid of the. Yeah.
So numericals.
Correct. Numericals में है. That's where the more fear is there, right?
Exactly.
Because when you want to solve the numericals, you are going to apply your learnings and understandings. Are you getting it?
Yeah.
So it's like more like applying and analysis, doing the analysis, applying, right? So let's take one analogy here. So let's say someone tells you how to drive a car or how to drive a bike.
Yeah.
This is making you understand that, and you have to remember some other things to drive the car. Or the, yes. So you are trained.
Yeah.
You know everything.
Yeah.
Any question is asked, you tell it.
Yeah.
Now you are given that bike.
Yeah.
Go and ride it for 5 kilometers in the city and then come back. Do you think you will come back? Right? You will be found somewhere in the hospital, or you will be sending someone else to the hospital. Right? So solving numerical is like that only. When you are taught the things, you are made to understand the things, you remember the things. That's not sufficient to solve the numericals. You have to practice. Like if you want to learn how to drive properly, you have to practice. That's the only way. There is no any other way. Kitna bhi remember kar lo rules, that is not going to help you drive better on the road. Only when you drive on the road and then you learn more. So numericals are like that only. You have to practice. Right? And it's like when you enter from 10th to 11th, as I appreciated the content of this, the curriculum of the 11th and 12th. At the same time, I find it very odd the way they have made the transition of this science from 10th to 11th.
Correct. Even I feel that. Even I.
Yeah, so up to 10th class, it's very easy. You can be taught the same science 10 times in a year.
First step to 10th.
Yes. But when you move to the 11th class, there is a turbulent transition. From the swimming pool, you are entering the ocean. So up to 10th class, you are being trained how to swim in a swimming pool. And suddenly you are thrown in the ocean. The 11th and 12th science is like that. You have to swim through the ocean.
True.
Right? That transition they should have worked on to make it a smooth. But anyway, it's there. Now that's when the students come here from the 10th to 11th, and when they start seeing that kind of numericals, it is going to be challenging. It can be the nightmare for many students. So as I told that, the only practice will help you, overcome your fear of solving the numericals. Right? So if you don't practice, you are not going to, solve the numericals easily. This will always be nightmare to you. It's like, we suggest the students that if you want to conquer your fear of numerical, you have to face the 500, 600 numericals in the beginning without quitting it. Even if it demands 2 hours of the time solving one numerical, give it. It's not the wastage of the time. That's where you put your brain to the work. You think more, you meditate more. Just to solve one question. You are not wasting your time. You are trying to train your brain to how to take the approach to solve the numerical. That's how you learn. Right? So it's the first 600, 700 numericals are like China wall. It's a big wall, right? If you can conquer that, if you can cross that, things becomes smoother for you. Now the sailing will become very, smooth. But crossing that barrier requires a lot of dedication, a lot of discipline.
That's
right?
very true.
You
Even
don't have-
I say the same thing with respect to mathematics. That's
Yes.
very true. That's very true.
Correct.
अब कुछ बोल रहे थे. Yeah, please.
Yes, that's where, so you have to go through this 500, 600 numericals. It will, for that solving those numericals, you also have to be very much careful in utilizing the resources. Because when you get stuck, whom to approach, that is also one question. Because every time you are trying and you are not getting the answers, you have to quit sometime at some, level. So you have to be very careful regarding the resources. What are the resources available? Your friends can be a resource. Sometimes your parents can be the resources. Google is the resource. YouTube is the resource. Your teachers are the resources. Books are the resources.
Yeah.
At any time, one of them is going to solve your problem.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to be also very much smart in choosing and utilizing your resources at that time.
That's right. So when we have this kind of a conversation, one thing that reminded me, like in the previous conversation of mine with somebody else, where we're discussing about a lot of people have this casual kind of a mentality, like हम इंजीनियरिंग में ए स्टडी करेंगे, बाद में उधर और ही होगा. I mean, like it will be kind of a completely different thing that we will be going to do there. So a lot of people have this attitude, like we will be studying this and we're not at all using it.
Okay.
Like I think you also have come across this.
I will say that most of the people, parents will also say that mainly with the mathematics, you are learning sine theta, cos theta, you are learning calculus. What is the application of this? They ask the question, where is the role of the sine theta, cos theta in your life? Right? I think as a mathematics teacher, you can shed some light on it.
No, I think most of my viewers have already watched it.
Okay.
Recently, I've uploaded a video regarding that.
Okay.
Where exactly this will be helpful for them, especially mathematics, and definitely science, physics, chemistry, especially these three subjects. They're like hand in hand in engineering field. So what I was trying to tell you, uh, in today's kids, they have this kind of attitude. They're not going to use it.
Okay.
They already have a kind of a software already made by those theorems or whatever the topics that you're discussing, whatever the principle that you're discussing. Already theorems are made. Softwares are made.
Okay.
We are just utilizing it. We just need to understand how that software needs to be used.
Yes.
So how do you tackle this point?
So one of the purpose of the life is to have happiness, to enjoy, right? So does using that software gives you happiness more, or will it be like when you create that kind of software, then it will give you the more happiness?
Of course, that is what
You have to think yourself. You have to ask this question: should I be the creator or should I be the user? Because when you use and apply those learnings, you can be the creator.
True.
Right? And if you have the temperament that I have the ready-made things, then you are the user. That's the difference.
Correct.
Right? So maybe you are reading a book, right? You are reading a big book, and like that, there are many books in the market. So when you read the book and try to analyze its results, and can you write yourself another book which can be more beautiful than all the books that you have written, or maybe it can have the flavor of all the books and it also will serve the purpose.
Yeah.
Then you can be the creator, right? So if you want to be the creator, then you have to change the way you are thinking. Of course, there are ready-made things. You don't have to have the engineering degrees. You just have to be trained. You can be trained and you can be using a lot of things that engineers do nowadays. But as an engineer, you can be the creator. Look at these fans, right? So there are technicians. Anytime it goes out of order, someone can repair it.
Correct.
What if that kit is not available in the market? Can technician build that kit?
No. That is what.
That's where the job of the engineers comes. That you can create it.
Correct.
You see that? So you have to have the different mentality for that. Of course, you can be very much relaxed that some ready-made things will be served. It's okay. But how do you feel about these things? You have to ask yourself that do you want to be the creator or do you want to be the user?
Very well said. And lastly, like what are the current research areas that are in with respect to the physics?
Currently, I think a lot of research is going on, and that's not the area of my interest. Also, we are more into this 11th and 12th class physics.
I just asked.
But there is something called quantum physics, which deals at the very microscopic level. Like, so if you look at the physics, there are two kinds of physics: theoretical and experimental. Theoretical physics, those who do that theory can be discarded in the future. There is a chance, there is a probability. Look at the previous model of the atom given by Thomson, got discarded. Dalton got discarded. Rutherford, some of it got discarded. Bohr's, some of it also got discarded. Because that was theory. Because you are talking about something you can't see. Can you see atom directly with the naked eyes? No. When they proposed the theory, they also could not see the atom. So without seeing, they gave the theory. So there is a chance that it might be discarded in the future. Then there is another thing, something called experimental, which you verify and then you take it as a science. So if the 11th, 12th class physics, most of it is experimental, right? It means you have to believe it. It is not going to get discarded in the future, not at least on the planet Earth, right? So quantum physics is more like dealing with the things which you can't see, which you can't touch directly. You can't feel the touch also, right? So in the quantum physics, they have developed something called, this quantum communication. So nowadays, any information that you have to pass on to your colleague or to your friends, right? There is a chance that it can be hacked. Now, the way the quantum physics has worked, the way they have developed their own communication system, it can never be hacked. And that's where it helps more to the government and the military.
Yeah.
Because these are very sensitive areas. The government does not want its information to get, hacked or disclosed to the enemies, right? In the same way, it also helps in the bank sector, right? You don't want your banks to be hacked.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the one of the area where it is going to be. It is actually in practice people are using. Second is the this teleportation. Have you heard the concept of the teleportation?
I mean, transmission.
The transmission means you are here, suddenly you can be in the New York.
Yeah.
In the fraction of second.
Yeah.
So whole of your body will be there, right?
I think it is still in the process.
Yes, they have tried to, I think, teleport a very tiny, object. But in the future, it's going to, I think, a lot of time to teleport the human beings, right? So these are the, there are many areas where they are working, right? Which will, make humans evolve more.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And I hope this will build some, at least out of 10, at least one should think about this sort of a temperament when you try to adopt in your daily life. And definitely, I would say you'll start loving physics or you'll start loving science. Thank you so much, sir, for coming here and being a part of our show. I wish to see you again, and we'll definitely have this sort of a conversations again and again, and will definitely help students to think in a bigger way. Like try to have the bigger picture of their engineering life and the medical life, I guess.
Of course, it was my pleasure to come here and talk to you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the inviting.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.